Welcome to the Hardwood Time Capsule podcast. This episode features Australian basketball royalty, a man who's played at the 1996 Olympic Games and the 1998 World Championships, a man who has won multiple NBL championships, multiple NBL MVPs, and is in the Australian Basketball Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the great Scott Fisher. Mr. Scott Fisher, welcome to the podcast.
How's it going, Drew?
It's going well, thanks. I really appreciate you making the time for us this morning or this evening, your time. We obviously teed this up a couple of weeks ago, and you had a nice trip to Italy, I take it?
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
We had, our daughter got engaged over there, and
fantastic, big moment, nice city to do it in.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks again for coming on. I guess this is really what all this podcast is about, is a time capsule. So it's going back into careers like yourself, and a hell of a career you had. I'll sort of reel off the resume in a few moments. But I guess without sort of aging you and I both too much, it's also a chance to educate the millennials and the Gen Zs on a bit of history and things like, for instance, the Perth Wildcats. I think it was 35-year run of making the playoffs that only ended recently, was the greatest run in all of world sport, not just basketball. But I think some people don't take the time to sort of look back at where that began and what that was built on and the culture that was built over there. So we'll get a chance to touch on that. But before I reel off your resume, I think a lot of fans might consider you sort of out of sight, out of mind. So what are you up to these days, and where do we find you in the world?
Well, I'm in Pebble Beach, California now, and made a few stops on the way after I had left Perth. I ended up over in on the west coast of the United States. Wasn't doing much there for about a year and a half, and then I got offered a job at University of Hawaii, and I was an assistant coach there. And I make no bones about this. I did not know the head coach before I joined that team, and the head coach was one of the worst human beings I have ever met.
My God.
And he, after 4 years, he got banned by the NCAA for 3 years. I think he's still out of the sport.
Wow.
And we all lost our jobs.
Yep.
And so it's kind of in that bit of limbo. Do I keep going? Do I call it a day? And then my hometown in Fremont, California, a community college there had a head coach opening. And I was living in Pebble Beach at that stage. It was like 90 miles away, so 120 kilometers away. And so I commuted back and forth, took that job, and really enjoyed that job. Had a number of Australians come through there. We had, relative success given where we were in our recruiting situations. Enjoyed it, but physically it got the better of me. I was spending 3 hours a day in a car. And that's just not the way I foresaw my future going. So I retired from there and been pretty much out of basketball since then. I did a little bit of work. Mentoring is probably too strong a word, but I was advising the head coach at a Division II school at Cal State Monterey Bay. And they've had a number of Aussies go through there. And I was somewhat involved there, went to practices, saw their games. Coach would send me video. We'd throw things around. And then COVID came around, and I wasn't involved last year. But I hope to get a little bit more involved this next year.
Yeah, awesome. So it was, just out of curiosity, was Vince Inglima at Monterey Bay at that stage?
Who's that?
Vince Inglima? I think he was a coach in the Bay Area. He might have moved on from there. Yeah, that might be a little bit earlier on. But no, I was just curious when you brought up Monterey Bay, yeah.
The head coach there was Isaac Williams. And,
right,
he's
okay.
Still,
yeah, no problems. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think, sorry you had that experience at University of Hawaii. That's, probably not something that's too much public knowledge. So people will be interested to, but certainly back here anyway. Maybe over there it is, but interested.
I mean, it wasn't anywhere else but Hawaii. I wouldn't have stayed for 4 years. I loved it there, and then I got to a point where I was feeling protective of the student athletes there, and felt like I was some sort of buffer between them and the head coach. And we did some things there I was proud of, but we also did some things that were shameful.
Yeah. No. Well, thank you for sharing that. For everyone, I'm going to just take a moment to sort of gloss over your resume. We're certainly not going to go year by year. We'll be here a little while. So Scott Fisher came to the NBL in 1987 with the North Melbourne Giants. Stayed there till 1992. Won a championship in '89. In that same year, won the MVP, won the finals MVP. So cleaned up all the awards. Didn't leave much for anyone else. And on that note, the 1989 championship, for those listening, there's quite a bit of great footage actually on YouTube that you can go back. In fact, you can go back and watch. I think it was Game 2 against the Canberra Cannons. So I'll put that link in the show notes for the listeners. And then moving on to the Perth Wildcats from 1993 through to 2002, winning championships in 1995 and the year 2000. After a small hiatus, then head coach from 2004 to 2008. Made 4 all NBL first teams in the NBL's 20th and 25th anniversary teams, and most prestigiously inducted into the Australian Basketball Hall of Fame in 2007. Internationally, on top of the domestic play, played for the Boomers in the Atlanta Olympics and the World Championships in 1998. So a pretty decorated career. I guess to first go back to that 1989 year when you won the championship. I think for some people that are sort of only followed the NBL maybe the last 10, 15 years or so. When I was doing a little bit of research on some of your other games, there was I might be testing memory here, but there was a Game 3 to get into that grand final series, and the score was 165 to 110 with no overtime.
Yeah. That was crazy. And I mean, there was a few games like that, but that game was wild. I think I want to say David Graham had like 28 points or something in the fourth, in the second half, or 30 points in the second half, or something. I mean, we just rolled all over the Wildcats. We beat them pretty good the first game, and I know the second game was closer, and that was a bit of surprise. And so we had to come out and get that win. And then of course, the famous thing was we beat them by 55, and that was Cal Bruton's number was 55, and so he retired shortly thereafter, only to play with the Hobart Devils a few years later.
Yeah, extraordinary game when you consider. I think it was for like 47 and 47 in the third and the fourth quarters. I guess you would usually resonate that with a first place, first last place, not a game to get into the championship series. And then and then you obviously went on and rolled the Cannons in straight sets and cleaned up the MVP there. 37 points in the first game and 33 points in the second game. There for you, I guess that sort of brings us. That was in your second or third year perhaps in the NBL. If you can just take us back a little bit, was basketball always going to be the sport for you, or was there gridiron as well? Was there baseball? What was going on as a kid in the States?
My favorite athlete growing up was Bruce Jenner.
Right.
He was a local guy. I can remember I went to a San Jose Earthquakes game in the early days of Major League Soccer in the United States. And I got his autograph then. And then that was before he went on to win the gold medal and have a personal best in every event. And so my ultimate dream was somehow to get the Olympics. I just, the whole Olympic thing was just so, I just was glued to it every year it came on, and it meant a lot to me. And so, I would have tried any sport to get into that. But one of my best friends, his dad was a track and field coach at the local high school, and so he got me into track and field. And so I was a pretty good pole vaulter, held the school record for 21 years, and it wasn't that high, and it wasn't good enough to go anywhere. But I was a real late bloomer, and so I had different kind of athleticism than a lot of guys had, and I was stronger than most, and it was kind of quick, and I was tough, and I could run forever. I could run a mile in 4:35, which probably equates to a 4:20 something, 1500. So there was an athlete there just trying to find a way to get out. So, track and field, basketball was my thing. And then I had a chance to go to university and play basketball. And that's where I ended up sticking.
Yeah, sure. And I guess to sort of tie all this together from coming to the North Melbourne Giants and from playing college, was there a recruiting process? Did you already know someone out here? What was that in terms of coming to Australia?
Oh, God. I can tell you exactly when it was. It was April 1st, 1987. And I was playing for the Cincinnati Slammers in the CBA.
That's a great name.
basically the G League now.
Yeah.
And we were coming towards the end of the season, and I got a phone call from Bruce Palmer, and you usually get snow in Cincinnati throughout the winter, and this is kind of into the spring, and we hadn't had snow all winter, and that night it had snow. There was a foot of snow outside, and I get this call from Bruce Palmer, and he's talking up the beaches in Melbourne, and the topless women, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Yeah. I'm looking outside, and I've got a foot of snow out there, and I look over here, and we all lived in a hotel. And so my roommate, he's over there scratching himself, and I'm just thinking, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
And so that the recruiting process from that was, I guess, Brian Gorgon had told Bruce Palmer about me because I had played against some college games against Brian's dad at Loyola Marymount.
Right.
I was at UC Santa Barbara, and I had some good games against them. So that was just somebody to look at, and I guess Jim Foster had done some shady things down there, and they needed a replacement. So I was on my way.
Yeah, fantastic. It's pretty amazing that you remember the exact day. So it's obviously
it was April 1st, so it was really easy to remember.
I guess
you couldn't believe it was snow after having no snow all.
Well, he definitely had you April fooled about the beaches down south here.
Indeed.
And when it comes to obviously arriving, in Melbourne and starting with the Giants, people, including Brian Gorgon himself, talk about how back then, a couple of years before that, but he had to have a job as a PE teacher, and a lot of others had jobs. Was it a full-time job for you when you arrived to play basketball?
We didn't get paid a whole lot that year in 87. It didn't have to be a full-time job, but I looked at doing some other things. Barra Industries was the owner of the team. They were into furniture, but they had some computer stuff that they wanted to try to get me to do. And I talked to Dun and Bradstreet to do collections or whatever, and that wasn't quite into that. And a couple of years later, I think in '89, I think I tended bar at some Mexican restaurant for a little while. So I did pick up a little bit extra, but I was. That's the other thing I think I had going for myself, is I was so singularly focused on being the best possible basketball player I could be. I wasn't that concerned about the money and trying to figure out my future. It was how was I going to get better on the court now, today? How was I going to get better? And so really practice ended, and I had a chance to shoot more. I'd shoot more, get to a gym early in the morning. I'd go early in the morning. We were traveling when we were away games for Fridays, Saturdays back then. And we'd get back on a Sunday, and I'd go straight to the gym. And if nothing else, I was probably hungover, but if nothing else, I'd just get up free throws and whatever it took. And so basketball was pretty much always a full-time gig for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson for a lot of people is, if you really want something to be all in, and clearly
you got to live it. You got to live it. Absolutely got to live it.
Yeah, I guess that brings me sort of to my next question, because clearly you were someone that took preparation very seriously in terms of, being in great shape and getting all those shots up. I think in that it might have still been that 89 year, you averaged 50% from the 3-point line as a forward. You know what I mean? And that's not because you took very few shots. You still put up like 84 shots or something and hit half of them. But I guess my question is, nowadays, in professional teams, whether it's basketball, football, whatever it is, strength and conditioning is a big part of the training structure. Everyone has weights coaches and athletics coaches. In those times, was it as structured back then, or was it just up to you and it was on you to go out and do it?
It was pretty much up to the individual. We had access to a gym, through the team, but other than a couple of weeks before the season started, I don't remember us having any prescribed times where, okay, we got practice here, we got to be in the gym tomorrow at this time, we got to do this. It was nothing like that. It was, in fact, one of the saddest things looking back in those times were it was not that easy to find a venue to work out in or to have practice or training sessions. Nobody like now, all the teams seem to own their teams, or own the venues, or even when we were at the Wildcats, we had a training venue available to us. Back then, it was Cary Grammer, Footscray TAFE, wherever we could get on a court. And so daily it would change. And so finding a place where we could lift weights and knowing that most of the Aussies on the team, basketball was their second job. And so they were at work all day. And so it was hard to organize those types of things. So I saw that as a potential advantage for me, getting in the gym a little bit more and being a little bit stronger than the next guy, because I wasn't jumping over anybody.
Yeah. And at that time, you were playing at the Glass House. So is it that there were other activities on when you guys wanted to train? Is that?
Yeah, we very rarely got to train in the Glass House back then. We occasionally would, maybe the night before the game we could get in there, but they would charge us. We couldn't afford to be in there.
That's crazy.
Wednesday and then get in there. So it was tough times.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think, considering what we've got now. And for those listening, the Glass House was the Lexus Centre, now the AIA Centre, I think, for the Collingwood Football Club. So their football training out of there, and weights and pool and all that sort of thing.
I guess that used to be an Olympic swimming pool in there.
Yeah,
before it became the Glass House.
Yeah, it's had a few different changes over the time. I remember going. I must have. I'm not sure if you played in this game. I must have only been like 9-10 years old, and it was Australia versus Russia in like a friendly.
That was early. I didn't play in that. I can't remember the exact year either. I want to say it might have been 88, 89. That was incredible. That was one of Andrew Gaze's best games.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, that. And then obviously we move on to sort of going over to Perth. Is there any story behind that, or was it just a set of circumstances that you wanted to change?
It was 1992. God, it was a long time ago. And I was MVP that year at North Melbourne, but the North Melbourne were looking to make some changes, and they were going to get rid of Bruce Palmer, which was very disappointing to me. He's still a great friend, but he was he was a great coach, and I owe him so much as both a player and a coach. Actually, he made the game so fun for all of us, and it was difficult. It was hard for me to see myself staying without Bruce. And then they let a couple other guys go too. Marty Clark got let go, a couple other guys, and they had a bit of a management change there. And I just wasn't as happy with the front office as I probably would have been. And I felt I had a lot of leverage and could go anywhere I wanted, but that seemed to be the year that they were kind of cracking down on the salary cap.
Right.
So it was not going to be easy. So I went over and I played a little bit in France and did all right there and got offered a job there. I came back and Tom Wiseman, who was at Newcastle, had a Japanese coach coming in, and he was going to look at Jerry Everett and a couple other guys. They're all going to work out at Newcastle, and he invited me up to go try out for this Japanese team. But to this day, that's probably the best 2 days I've ever had in my life as a basketball player. I mean, I was unstoppable that day, those 2 days. And so I got offered the job at Japan. They gave me 36 hours to make a choice. And Perth had gone with Mark Bradkey, but just recently, maybe a week earlier, Mark Bradkey had changed his plans and decided to go to Melbourne. So Perth was out a big guy, and they had the preseason coming up, and they invited him to come out and play in the preseason tournament. So I was going to have to give up this opportunity to play in Japan for a lot of money and for a chance to make the Perth Wildcats. And I went and played in that preseason tournament, played well. I think we won that tournament. And Kerry Stokes offered me a ride back to the hotel in his limo, and by the time I got out of the limo, I was a Wildcat.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Just because I know we have a fair few coaches listen to this. When you talk about Bruce Palmer, it being fun to play under him, what was it? Was it freedom to just play your own game? Was it the speed of play? What was it that was fun?
Well, when I think back, I think for me, yeah, it was plenty of freedom. He let me do whatever I wanted. I don't think he ever raised an eyebrow at me. He was very encouraging, and probably knew that he didn't have to motivate me in any way. He was harder on some of the guys further down the bench, and but geez, it was always fun because it was always funny. The guy is hilarious, and even in the toughest, tightest situations, he's going to make you laugh. And there was just a sincere bonding with all of those teams where we all felt very, very close, and we'd play for each other, and that was something that Bruce was really good at doing, was putting the we in team all the time. And you always felt like you were doing it for the other guys.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's I think it's a really good insight, and thanks for sharing that, because sometimes a coach like Bruce Palmer or whoever it is, when you're a spectator in the stand and you see all the grumpiness and the anger and all that sort of thing, you don't see the bond that a coach might have, and so the players will take it from a different place. Because they know, someone's level of sarcasm, what someone's trying to do to hold you accountable, all those sort of things. So I appreciate that insight. When you went over to Perth, and this is speaking more from, I guess, an observer's perspective, obviously, you guys formed a pretty intimidating team pretty quickly. It was like you guys were hunted, but yet you still played hard, like you never got complacent. And I just remember going to games, being from Melbourne and being a Tigers supporter, and it was like you just always knew when Perth came to town, like it was going to be tough. It was either going to be tough on the scoreboard or tough physically, or usually both. did you feel like you had that confidence, like you guys were, hard to deal with?
Yeah, we were very aware of that. But if you really wanted to see how tough we were, you should have come to our practices, where no fouls were called. I mean, it was we beat the hell out of each other regularly. There was numerous fists thrown through the years there at Perth. I mean, it was there wasn't where the North Melbourne Giants would travel as a pack, on and off the court. Wildcats would, beat the hell out of each other in practice. And then we would know that we were ready come game time. And maybe after that game, maybe after practice, we many of us went our separate ways, but there was a healthy respect in the Wildcats locker room and on the court.
Yeah, and that all makes sense when you see the end product and what you guys were able to bring out on game day. For you guys to have just basically made that second nature, that you practice that way, you play that way. For the listeners out there, there's a great documentary. It was done in the mid-90s. It was actually about the Melbourne Tigers. It was called The Tiger's Tale, done by Channel 10 and Stephen Quartermain, but it features a lot of the Wildcats, and just how ruthless, and just how tough it was. Like people talk about like the toughness of like the Detroit Pistons of the NBA and stuff like that, like in the late 80s. That was kind of bordering on sort of dirty sort of tactics, that stuff. This was just pure, like this was just tough basketball. Like if you were going to get fouled, you got fouled pretty hard, and there was no putting out a hand to help someone up like you see these days. Like it was just, I think it could do listeners a lot of good to go back and watch it. It's called The Tiger's Tale, and it's just, or even just the YouTube, some of the Perth games, because it was just, guys going at each other, from the biggest guys to, Ricky and Leonard, the trash talking and going back at each other, and it was just. It's not something you see all the time these days, and some great grand final series. And then when you throw in the Southeast Melbourne Magic into that and the rivalries you guys had with that, and then some of the Sydney teams, like that era of basketball. I mean, I'm telling you stuff you already know because you played in it, but yeah, I just get so worked up about it, because it's just, it was just so pure and so tough. So
I mean, if it wasn't inspiring stuff, and if it wasn't different from what you see today, I don't think you'd be running this podcast. It was, I mean, it was pure back then, and that hugging each other before the jump ball. I mean, that we weren't doing that back then. I don't know if you could ever see it, but I can remember Andrew and I squashing Blair Smith, right after the jump ball, just looking him in the eye and just saying, you're gonna feel this.
Yeah.
And ball goes up and we just smashed him. And I can't remember which series that was, but he was, we took it out of him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It's truly something that I think you can only really get a feel for it if you really go back and watch it. Because it was just everything. It was the play, and then the play transferred onto the fans. Like the fans were crazy. Like the coaches were crazy. Like it's the sort of vibe. In the modern era, I think you can really only closely compare it to something you might see in Greece or something you might see in Europe, where everyone's just going bonkers. Instead of the players, hitting a three and doing this and, all this sort of stuff, it was pumping fists and getting in the guy's face as you're going back down the court.
This was the crazy thing. So when I was in Melbourne to begin with, there was, if you can include Geelong, there was 5 teams from Victoria. And North Melbourne was popular, but when I went out when I was on the streets, 3 out of 4 people hated me because they would barrack for somebody else. When I went to Perth, gee, the whole place loves you. It's a whole different thing. It was great. And when I say hate, I mean, cutting you off on the road, throwing stuff at you, just going off on you at games. I mean, it was it was not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, and I guess that sort of raises another question because of how physical and tough it was, and I mean, it's quite not surprising, but from what we get fed over here from the US, they still consider the NBL a fairly physical league. Did you find when you came over from college to here, obviously you already played with the Cincinnati Slammers, did you find that it was more physical over here than over there?
I had 6 weeks with the Milwaukee Bucks. Try out with the Sixers. I also played in the USBL against, and there was former NBA guys both on our team and we played against. But I think, over the course of an entire season, and I actually played against that Detroit Pistons team. And it was preseason, so there wasn't a whole lot on the line. But yeah, it was very physical stuff. Once we had those couple of years with the national team, that was probably, more physical again. Just the grabbing and the holding, not just the elbows and this and that, but I felt like FIBA basketball back in those days was probably the most physical, but certainly the NBL was very tough.
Yeah, I think we still see it. This is just my opinion, but we still see it in FIBA, and that's where Team USA, it usually takes them a game, 2 games, 3 games to get used to. Oh, we're not getting that called anymore. So I think there's still that when you go into FIBA basketball. Would you agree?
From what I've seen, yes, I would agree. Certainly those referees, they don't want to call everything. And I can remember the Olympics, watching the U.S. team. The U.S. team would just berate the referees, just go at them over and over and over and over and over again. They would call fouls early, and by the second half, the referees are so worn out they just stop calling things, and the U.S. teams would generally pull away at that stage.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get you to do a little bit of name dropping because the kids will like this. That listen to the podcast. When you played in the Olympics and you played against Team USA, what are some of the names you came up against?
Oh, well, the one that always, I mean, there was a whole bunch of them, but obviously the kids are going to know Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah. They're going to know Charles Barkley. Yeah. And of course, David Robinson, Akeem Olajuwon, who was previously from Nigeria, but had become a U.S. citizen that year. And, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Anthony Hardaway, Grant Hill, Scottie Pippen, Tim Hardaway. It was a pretty good team.
Yeah.
A few All-Famers in there and quite a few, top 50 players of all time.
Yeah. And sort of speaking to you, we get this rare chance that only 12 people in the world can tell us the answer to this is what's the coach's message when you're going out to play a team that is like that is loaded, that you're probably not expected to get within 10 points, 20 points of. Is it the same message as you would get against the game you beat Puerto Rico, and I think you top rebounded in that game? What's the difference, if there is any difference?
Oh, there's a difference. Nobody's sitting in that locker room is an idiot. So we all know, we're up against it. And so we generally, I guess Andrew Gaze's favorite thing was, it's not surgery. It's not war. So it's okay to go out and have a little fun. And if things don't work out quite right, we still get to walk away. If things don't go right in war or go right in surgery, it's a different story. So we kept it pretty light prior to playing the U.S. team, but it was pretty serious when you were playing, say Brazil, triple overtime. I think that game went, or double overtime. Yugoslavia, no, Croatia, I guess it was.
You got them. That was good. Yeah.
Another close game, and then Lithuania for the bronze. We felt we could beat those teams. We really did, and proved that we could, and just came up a little short against Lithuania.
Yeah, that's it. It's and it was a long road still after that to finally get that bronze medal. but we eventually got there. In terms of, I'm cognizant of your time, so I'm going to sort of switch gear here and look at the coaching side of things. As you were sort of coming towards, I guess, the twilight of your career with the Perth Wildcats as a player, did you already think you would go into coaching?
No, and I had always, when I look back, there was never a time I thought, oh God, I can't wait to get into coaching. I never considered it, and fiddled with a couple of things when I was done playing. Started a business. Then I got into selling real estate. And
was this all over in Perth still?
This is all over in Perth, and I got hooked up with some really good people in the real estate. So the first 12 months probably wasn't that great, but the next 6 months after that, I was doing pretty well, and there was going to be some money made there. And then Perth was going through a couple of changes with ownership, Vlahov and Longley owning it, and getting kicked out of the Perth Entertainment Center and having to go back to the Superdrome, and crowds weren't very good. And it was disappointing to see where things were heading there. And I had dinner with Andrew and his wife, Claire, and they offered me the head coaching job. And I dismissed it out of hand. He goes, "Look, please do not, let's go sleep on it." And I did. I give it due consideration. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I want to do this. And so dove in. And frankly, I didn't even know where to start. I really didn't. And they had Dave Ingham was an assistant coach there, and they kept him on. And as somebody who was going to help guide me, because he'd been a head coach. I don't think he was happy about being an assistant coach to a rookie head coach. And so he and I, we clashed for 2 years, and it wasn't until I basically said I'd rather do this by myself than with him that things started to turn better for me. Yeah. And surrounded myself with some other quality people, and we had some good years there, did some good things. And in terms of continuing the profession of coaching, it may have been a better move to have stayed in Perth. They offered me another 4 years. It was there wasn't a whole lot guaranteed. There was a lot more incentive based, and I wasn't overly happy with that, and felt like I could get, with my resume, sure, I can get a job in the States, and it's not that easy, and there's not a lot of money in coaching in the States unless you get
top. Yeah.
I enjoyed that. That was fun for a while, and once again, there were some management changes there at Perth, and they had an ownership change, and a couple other things happened that kind of soured me a little bit about staying there. But it was interesting, and I coaching was it's not for everybody, but I enjoyed it, as tough as it was. It was fun for the 12 years that I was involved in coaching.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of players, regardless of what sport it is, they talk about, when it comes to retirement, there's a bit of a void, bit of a hole there where, missing the guys in the locker room, being part of a team, the adrenaline of running out in front of, thousands of people and, showing them your craft. In between playing and coaching, did you miss that?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, from 18 years to 38 years old, so for 20 straight years, basketball at an elite level, and we're talking, college in the States and on to pro. But basketball at an elite level for 21 straight years, that's and that everything that's good in your life is, for the most part, has come from basketball. It's paid for all your meals. It's all I knew, for the most part. And so, when you retire, you better have some hobbies. And I got into cycling, and and now I golf and I play saxophones. And we rescue senior dogs. So we got plenty of things to do now. But back then when it's and then when you're seeing it every day, still. I was still going to games, and I'm watching. I'm thinking, I should do this, or could have done that, or we should do this better, or maybe I should have played another year. Whatever it is, it's not easy. It's not easy to walk away from something you've done for 21 straight years.
Yeah, no, that seems to be the common theme. I mean, speaking to Lucas Walker, who finished up with the Sydney Kings a couple of years ago, he said the same thing. I mean, he'd gone AIS as a youngster, and then 15 years or something as a pro. And he said one day it just ends. There's no book for it. And we talked about the structure, he's like, when we're part of a team, we had to, get up, we had training at this time, weights at this time, physio at this time. And he goes, and he loves structure. So I think it's, for people that love structure, it's a little bit of a, sort of a weird experience where, like you said, you've got to have a hobby, because you've got to have a purpose to get up in the morning and do something. You also seem, from what you and your lovely wife Dean has told me, is you're very passionate about staying in shape, and still being healthy, which is the other thing that can sort of go when you see players retire, is all that sort of stuff falls by the wayside. But it sort of brings me on to my one of my final questions is, Lucas also talked about, he made a statement saying that nothing could replicate the highs and lows for him of basketball in life. He said, my children achieving something could potentially match the highs, but nothing will get me as low as the defeats, and how personally he took some of that stuff. Can you speak sort of in your own experience to a little bit of that? Do you find anything's matched the highs and lows of professional sport?
Yeah, I think probably going on what Lucas talks about is, I think the highs are, it's a different type of thing. My stepdaughter got engaged while we were over in Italy, and that was a real special moment. And you feel that deep, and beautiful moment, and something that lasted a few days for us, and still look at it fondly now. But those lows, as you get older, the shittier things in life happen more often. People get sick, people pass away. Your aches and pains. Why do I wake up with a sore back? I didn't even do anything yesterday. It's things like that, and those types of things where you you look at this time in your life, and I turned 60 in a few weeks, and you think it's just going to be all smooth sailing now because I got all, financially stable, like I said, look after myself. But there's, like I said, shitty stuff starts happening more often around you, and those, deaths and sicknesses. I mean, that's worse than a loss. But if it's not happening to you, a loss is something you do take very personally. And those were there were some tough times. And when you got, I blew out my knee there right after the Olympics, and I had to sit out an entire year. It's those, I can remember getting 3 cortisone injections in my knee and 5 in my spine the last 12 months of my career.
Wow.
I'm probably fortunate that I was smart enough to stop when I did, even though I thought I could maybe still be effective for another year or two, but I wouldn't, enjoy life going forward, which I've been able to do. And then turning 60, for me, I was always wanting to set goals and try to achieve these goals. And the last few years, especially with COVID and things, I haven't really been able to do that. So it's, I did think of something. And so this September, I'm going to hike around Lake Tahoe here in California. It's about 170 miles long, but it's all 5,000 to 9,000 feet of elevation. It's not, so I want to do it by myself, and I want to do it all in one go. So it should take, 9 or 10 days camping, with bears and
wow,
and all that sort of thing. And I really haven't done anything like that, but it's, I want to step out of my comfort zone and push myself. And same kind of thing you do with basketball. If you really want to get somewhere, you got to step outside your comfort zone. You got to push yourself, and you got to be all in. So for, those 9-10 days up there on the trail, I'm all in.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome to hear. And hopefully you're able to document some of it, because we'll follow you on your Insta and see that from the comfort of our homes. But no, that's 100%. I think sport and life mimic each other so much. And I know with my little fella at the moment, getting him involved in sport, whatever he chooses, dealing with loss, dealing with failure, dealing with rejection, dealing with winning, dealing with all those sort of things can so quickly be, used as life skills as well. So I think that's awesome. I was going to ask you as a finish-up question, sort of what's next for Scotch Fisher, but obviously tackling Lake Tahoe is on the agenda. And now I've got to ask with your golf, because myself and a few others are pretty keen golfers. You got a golf tournament tomorrow. How are you going with your golf? Are we talking like single number handicaps, or?
Yeah, I'm a single number handicap. I play a lot. And we're fortunate here because the weather is, although it never gets really warm here, the weather, you can play all year round. So,
right.
And we're members at Monterey Peninsula Country Club, which is two of the top 100 courses in the United States. So it's fun every day we do it. So I played today, and tomorrow I'm in a little tournament. And I will say this about golf, and this is something that, it's once again, there's nothing life or death. I'm not playing for millions of dollars or even hundreds of dollars most of the time. But I've shot free throws in front of 35,000 people at the Georgia Dome, and I've never been more nervous than standing over a golf ball.
Well, there you go.
It is I am forever blown away by the mental challenge of golf. And so that's something that's really got, I'm totally addicted to it. In fact, I talked to Adam Caporn, who's obviously, at the Brooklyn Nets now, and he's taking up golf as well. We talk about golf all the time.
Yeah, it seems to with
golf and basketball.
Yeah, it becomes an illness, an addiction.
It's an illness.
It's a healthy one to have, though. I think as long as you got partner that either likes golf or understands your passion for it, because it does take a lot of time.
No, that's a great thing. Is Dean and I, that's very good quality time for us as a couple, because we go, we play all the time. We bring our clubs with us and we go somewhere. So we didn't play in Italy, so that was like the longest we've gone and for years without playing. So
yeah,
we got back after it yesterday and today.
Nice one. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I mean, you don't owe me anything. You don't need to do things like this. So for you to do it out of the generosity of your time, I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone that listens to it will, because you're certainly a familiar face, when you're in Australia, and it'll bring back a lot of great memories for a lot of people, I think. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I haven't been down. Last time I was down was November 2019. It was a 30-year anniversary of the Giants championship from 1989. So we had a great time there. Of course, I saw Mark Leader there, and he had recently passed this year. But I'm going to go back down. Going to go to Perth. It'll be the first time I haven't been back to Perth. I've been back to Melbourne quite a few times, but I have not been back to Perth since I left. So it's been 15 years. So I'm going to go back in October.
Awesome, fantastic. So a lot of people will be happy to hear that. It is a fair way to travel when you get to Australia. Then you got to go at the extra 5-hour flight. Yeah. But no, I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy it. And thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Not a problem, Drew. Anytime.
Thanks, mate. Take care. Bye. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe for the next episode.